Thank you so much for being a part of Building Trades Week 2022. All attendees are muted, but we still want to hear from you. So please use the chat function to ask any questions or share comments. This session is scheduled for 30 minutes. So just know that if you put your questions in the chat, do it early so we don't get to the end and have a bunch of questions that we can't get to. So do those as we go along and we'll get to those. Also, if you're on this call, please drop your school in the chat so we know who's here. Sometimes we see names and we don't, especially as students are logging in from home, we just want to know where you're coming from. So we'd appreciate that. We want to thank all of our sponsors for Building Trades Week 2022, including our premier sponsor, St. Joe Valley Building Trades. And Allison will also put our other sponsors into the chat. I'm Kate Lee. I'm the Executive Director of Education and Workforce at the South Bend Regional Chamber, and we are excited to welcome Mike Miller, Business Development Associate at Weigand Construction. This session will be a broad overview of the commercial construction industry, and I'll start off with some questions, but again, encourage all of you to jump in and ask questions as we go along. So good morning, Mike. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Kate and Allison as well, doing the scenes behind. Another great day here in Michiana, and some of us don't have a chance of working from home and because of school and because of weather. So it's exciting to be here for sure.
It is, and we're lucky we can. So there you go.
That's right.
We're healthy today. So there you go. So we're going to start with a quick industry overview. So if you could share, and we were talking a little bit before we even started, how crazy the construction industry is right now and busy, and really important that we keep continuously letting people know about the great careers that are available out there. So can you share with the students what's happening in the construction industry today? Give us the broad overview.
Sure. Right now, the construction industry nationally, regionally, globally is in a continued increase. The demand, a lot of it due to a lot of interest rates from banks, continue to see growth. Developers are wanting to grow, business owners are wanting to grow because of the interest rates, but also because of the supply and the demand that they're seeing from their clients. So it's a great time. There's also some significant challenges in the industry as a whole. Again, whether it's regionally here in Michiana or whether it's nationally, the supply chain issue is a big concern to us as contractors, but also then the trickle-down effect to the owners and how that is. So we're continually monitoring that basically on a daily basis, if not weekly, to make sure we're hearing from subs and suppliers what that means to their respective industries. And then the other big thing right now that the industry is facing is a shortage of workers. That's nothing new. I think I probably even shared that last year. It's the case right now of the generation of the 55 and above that are either retiring early or they're getting to 62 to 65 and planning to retire. And then the younger generation not having as many workers enter the field as what we did 40, 50 years ago. So there's that gap. So you name the industry right now or the career, there's probably a place for you for sure.
Wonderful. So another interesting piece in the whole construction industry right now in general is that the government just passed legislation to improve our roads, ports, and more. So what's the impact on the future of the industry? Like, how are we feeling that right now? And how, if you were going to make a prediction, what would you think? Like, what do you feel like this is going to look like over the next few years?
No, the interesting thing with government work like that and the dollars that they are allocating, things like roads and bridges, typically to get, even though the money's there, that will be a 2 to 3 to 5, 8-year plan typically because of the fact of just infrastructure. Take, for instance, bigger cities, Chicago, Indianapolis, things like that. You can't just plan a road. Usually it's those overpasses or, whatever it might be. Same thing with the bridge. You might need a bridge in a certain area, but there's other infrastructure places that have to take place before that. So really the planning probably is taking place now because the money's been allocated, but you probably won't see that in a full effect, at least probably at minimum 2 years. But again, a lot of the planning, because of the design and the engineering that needs to take place, and you probably won't see a lot of that come into place until maybe even 5 years from now. And obviously the larger cities, you'll see it quicker, and then it'll start trickling down into the South Bends and Mishawaka's, the more regional cities as those things take place.
And again, like the big cities and the smaller cities and towns are going to be kind of fighting for talent to do this kind of work. So this is a really interesting time to be getting into the building trades.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're seeing that now, just from the amount of work here regionally. If you think of the amount of work that's here, obviously you've got the tower still going on at Four Winds Casino, the hotel. The Beacon is planning that big expansion with the tower there downtown. Notre Dame always has work. And so owners are very well aware in this region that if the bigger companies are having these kind of projects going on, what's that trickle down effect to a project maybe smaller in size? It's important to an owner, but just knows the resources might not be available to get it done when they want to get it done.
Yeah, patience.
Yes.
We're all going to learn that.
Right, right.
Lots of yoga for everybody.
Exactly, for
Yeah.
sure.
Breathing. So when you're looking at this growth of jobs, there's a lot of different jobs, obviously, within building trades. So
Yep.
what jobs do you see as high growth areas? I mean, there's like, and there's everything from the actual trades like swinging a hammer and putting on a roof, but then there's also construction managers, IT, CAD, project engineers. Where do you see, I guess, regionally, this big growth and demand? So if students are interested in pursuing something, what direction do you think they should go? And I guess it's kind of everything, but.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we would always encourage, no matter what the student is interested in, whether it's an office position like mine or, more field related in terms of carpenter, mason, etc., to get experience in the field. I spent 5 years in the field in my early 30s. And even today I can use that experience, whether it's on the job or at home, because I've got some of that experience, but it provides you a great background and knowledge of actually the type of work. I can say on days like this, I've been out working, and it's a lot different in terms of work, in terms of trying to get things put in place compared to a 75-degree day in May. Specific jobs that we're seeing increased demand on the office side, project managers, project engineers are still a great career. If individuals want to go to an Ivy Tech and or a Purdue, Ball State to get their construction degree, there's a place for you. There's definitely some of the more interesting ones right now that we're seeing because some of the changes in construction, twofold. One, we're seeing a lot more prefabrication, meaning building certain parts and pieces of projects done off-site. So there are companies, we are included, where we actually have a building somewhere, whether it's in town, out of town, within an area that actually is building certain walls and components off-site, and then it'll get trucked in, so it's delivered and installed that day. That helps with resources, obviously, because it's a controlled environment. So people, you can be considered a carpenter, but you're working inside all day, in a plant, building the same thing you would out in the field. Sometimes this is done because of the amount of space on a project that we just don't have the amount of space. So that's becoming very, very popular, not only in construction, plumbing, mechanical, electrical. We're seeing a lot more of those kind of pieces done in those trades as well. Becomes more efficient for owners. And then secondly, technology, and that's wide ranging. But a couple areas that we have seen significant growth at our company, building information modeling. The short acronym is BIM, but that's basically taking the 3D model of a floor plan or a building plan and adding certain components for it. Whether that is pre-planning design in terms of how things will get put together, and or also what trade goes first. So there's not necessarily a plumber that goes in first and all of a sudden an electrician can't do their work because the plumber's stuff is in their way. So some of that, again, it's more efficient. So that's done ahead of time. And then the other thing that we're seeing a lot of are the use of drones. We've got 3 certified drone, I guess you could call them pilots on staff. We've got 2 drones at Weigand, and they can be used for a variety of things, whether it's early on, just looking over a project from the aerial view. We use it for safety. We'll be able, our safety director, one of our safety directors is certified, so he can check to make sure, like on roofs specifically, certain areas you might not be able to walk because of the danger areas, so they can certify and check those areas on the roof. And then also we use them for clients. Schools right now, we've built a couple brand new schools in the last couple of years. They've found those at board meetings to be very successful. So the board members don't have to necessarily go out to a job site weekly or monthly to get an update. we can do a 1.5 2-minute flyover or fly through depending on the project time. And they can get a specific idea of where the project is based on schedule. They can also get a real life idea of the project in terms of constructability and where that's at.
That's awesome. I think about like when they were building the new library, when they were
Yeah.
renovating and expanding the library, how they did the weekly updates of
Yes.
the construction. And that was just so cool to watch. Like even they'd show you like, we painted this room this week and all this stuff.
Yep.
You can do the exteriors as well, which is pretty amazing and a great way to like, for the community to really rally around the construction project.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great way to show the owner what's going on from the comfort of an office or from, their conference room to where they don't have to, find time in their schedule to get out to the job site.
And not everybody wants to go up on a roof. I'll be honest about that. Not
Right.
everybody's thing. So that's okay.
Right.
And probably
Absolutely.
nobody wants to pay the insurance for everybody to go up on the roof. So that's probably all right.
That's very true. That's very true.
So you mentioned like having the kind of the foundational skills. What was your first job? How old were you? And what did it teach you that you feel like you still use today?
Sure. My first job, I laugh at it with my uncle quite a bit. So this would have been when I was 16, right in high school as a sophomore. My uncle still owns a residential construction company, custom homes in Elkhart County primarily. And my job as the grunt, as the young buck, if you will, my cousin and I both the same age, our two primary jobs. One was when they were ready to shingle, we would have to lay the underlayment. So the black tar paper up on the crazy roofs and the angles and the pitches. And then they'd have a shingle company come in and do that. The other thing that we were tasked with was filling the nail holes from the trim carpenters. So if you can think of trim in a house, sometimes these custom houses that get 8,000 to 10,000 square feet with all this nice elaborate trim, my job was to get 2 or 3 things of putty and go around and fill all the holes. So yeah, you get calluses very quickly.
How many nail holes a day? That's a lot of.
Yeah, I stopped counting after about one room because I realized I had a lot to go.
So what do you feel like you learned in that really still informs the work you do every day?
Yeah, no, I think things like that, knowing that you're the grunt, you're the guy, number one, it teaches you the value of every job's important. It doesn't matter, whether you're the top of the line, whether you're at the bottom, there's a role for you to play. And for people to accept that, and then also to have fun doing it. I mean, at the end of the day, I was 16 years old, getting paid a decent paycheck, and I got to sit on my butt and scoot around a room and fill putty holes. And then just the value of work, right? I knew there was work the next day. I knew exactly what I had to do to get it done. And then it's just translated then, but it starts at the base level of having fun, doing what you're doing, and having the desire to do it on a daily basis.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to remind the people who are on, in case some jumped on later, if you're whatever school you're with, if you could drop that in the chat so we know where you're from, that would be awesome. And if you have any questions, please put those in the chat as well, because we'd love to share those. I'm going to jump. So you talked about your first job. So that probably gave you some ideas about career pathway and things like that. So when did you kind of make that choice? What did you do after high school? How did you move? How did you get to where you are now?
Yep, good question. So I graduated from Bethel College, or Bethel University in Mishawaka, with a business degree. So the first 6 years out of college, I was not in construction. I was in general sales. Made the switch back into commercial construction back in 2003. So going on close to 20 years. And again, started out in the field. So I spent a couple years swinging the hammer, doing the dirty work on great days, and then on days like this, which is a little tougher and cooler. So from there, again, spent 2 to 3 years in the field as a carpenter, came into the office then initially as an estimator. So began estimating projects ranging from 500,000 to a couple million. And then in 2010, transferred into the role of business development, where now my job really is to go out and find the work, also to be a community liaison for the company, to do a lot of community events similar to this, participate in non-for-profit boards, community functions, to make sure that we as a company are a good citizen to the community as well, not just somebody looking for the work, but we want to give back in areas as well.
I'm going to go off our question list from that because I do know you're involved with JA and you do a lot of those kind of things. So
Yep.
talk to this group about taking like the things that you do in your job and what you really enjoy and how you can include community service and being engaged in the community as really part of your work and kind of do well by doing good for your company.
Right. Yeah, it's a great position that I get to be. I've got a freshman and sophomore at Penn, and they give me a hard time because there's a lot of times I am out in the community. I don't have a set day in and day out schedule because my role changes depending on the day. But to be out in the community and give back and play that role is unique because a lot of the spaces that I get to be in or participate at event in are spaces that we've touched. So one of our slogans at Weigand is building landmarks that impact the lives of the communities that we serve. So yeah, we're building a hospital, we're building a school. And so that's the bricks and mortar piece of the project. And yeah, there's compensation and there's bills to be paid. But at the same time, for a school or for a hospital, what does that translate for them? You know, for the school, the functionality of students, how does that translate down to their day-to-day activities? How does that help the teachers teach the students in the programming? You know, in a hospital, if we add a wing, we're finishing up a project at St. Joe Health right now, upgrading their operating rooms. Again, that's just a construction bricks and mortar, but at some point it could be me on that operating table or a family member. And so how does that better impact the doctor that's, you know, doing their job to whether it's save a life or, you know, help improve the quality of life of that individual. So it's pretty cool when you truly think of our work. Yeah, we're just putting a piece of brick into place, or yeah, we're just hanging some drywall, but what that space then is going to be transformed and how that's going to impact the individuals, whether it's teachers, students, doctors, nurses, presidents, whatever their title is, moving forward and impacting their specific day-to-day jobs.
I will say I worked at St. Joe Med Center when the new hospital was built.
Yes.
So during that transition and being a part of that, I did fundraising then. And so being there and on site with my hard hat on, like the detail and the amazing things and the things you just don't think of unless you're in construction, like the air filtration systems, particularly in the surgical suites and all those different things. And I remember them setting up in another building that we had, they set up these mock surgery suites.
Absolutely.
They had all the doctors and nurses come in and like pretend they were doing resuscitation on somebody. Like, is the ceiling high enough? And there's just so many things you don't think about. Yes.
Owners are spending, hospitals specifically, are spending good chunks of money ahead of time to plan. And to your point exactly, Kate, these ideas of mock buildings, mock setups for a month or 2 or 6 months, however long, for the users to go in and actually test things out before it's built. So to figure out, hey, is this countertop and cabinet in the right space? Is this sink in the right space? Yeah, where do the lights that come down for the surgical lights need to be hanging so that they can quickly grab them and move them as needed? That's a great example because all this stuff goes well in advance of it actually taking place in the construction field.
It's the measure twice, cut once theory on steroids.
It so much is, for sure.
And you don't want to mess that up, right?
No, you don't.
Even if you do, and look at this, I'm going, how many years ago was it that hospital was built? It feels like 100 and also like 5. Nothing is like the time continuum, but the fact that the surgery suites are already being, it's all being removed because everything's changed. Again, back to technology.
Yep. They've got new, we've had to add new structure in place because whether it's robotic items or whether the different lighting or techniques that are now hung instead of maybe coming in on a wheeled cart or however it was done prior. So yeah, we have gone in and I think they had 22 suites and we're in the last phase now that should be done in February. So. And
I'll tell you all, if you had supervision, you could see through those ceilings at the med center, you'd be amazed at what's up there in the ceiling. It's like, oh my God, there are so many wires and things and what do all those do? And
the students in schools would have the same situation if they'd walk down the hall and pop one of those ceiling tiles to see exactly what's up there. And yes,
There's a lot of power.
there is.
So we have a question in the chat. It says, when I graduate in the spring, I don't want to go to a four-year college. If I want to work in a trade, what is your recommendation of the path I should take? Like, what should I do first?
Yep. No, great question. There's two approaches you can take. If you're not sure, test some different ones, whether that's finding a local company to be a carpenter, whether that's finding a local company to be an electrician. There's plenty of opportunities out there. The other idea alongside that, maybe go to Ivy Tech, maybe take a couple classes in general construction, saying in maybe a year or two, you're not going to go into construction, but you're going to stay in the industry to where that knowledge can still help you. We've told architectural students, we've had a couple come through us, even though they go on to be an architect. We've told architectural students to spend a year in summer during their time at a college or university to work in the construction field. Because one of the things you hear from architects later on, once they get their degree and move on, is they put it down on paper, on design, but does it actually work and is it functional in the field? So many times we've seen that something drawn is not going to work in the field. And an architect realizes it later. So just to get that experience, just out in the field, hearing the conversations, being able to ask those questions. Well, why do we do it like this? Because I learned a long time ago, while I think I'm the smartest guy, there's no way near that I'm the smartest guy. And so to ask those questions to those individuals that have been around 10, 15, 20 years, and to hear their responses and the why behind it, all of a sudden, then it becomes, you sort of put that in your back pocket for the next time to make sense. Like, okay, now it's clearer today than it was yesterday. Now I can take that knowledge and move on to the next project or task.
That's a really good example of why teamwork is just so incredibly important, and to respect the knowledge and the opinions of others. Because I worked for an architecture firm when I first got out of college, and I still remember having a conversation with an engineer, somebody who I barely knew, and I'm like 22, 23 years old, having this conversation. And he was all like, oh yeah, this looks pretty, but it's not going to stand for very long because those architects, blah, blah, blah. I was like, ooh, are you talking about my bosses?
Right.
Like, that's a conversation for you to have over there. Like,
yes.
Like, I was a journalism major. I don't know what you people are talking about. But very interesting. So I saw in the chat, does Weigand hire entry-level positions?
We do. Entry-level positions. It's twofold. We have a summer internship program for students that are in college that are looking to get the construction degree. That runs obviously through this, depending on when the student is, and that can be at various levels. Sometimes it's in the office. Again, a lot of early internships, we still try to get those students, even if they want to be in the office once they get out of college, we try to get them in the field, because there's so much value just to be able to, again, see it and hear it, so that when you transfer back into the field or in the office as a graduate, it makes a little more sense. We do have some that have that opportunity in the office, again, depending on the amount of work that we have and the required tasks that we have. But then entry-level graduates, whether it's a 2 or 4 year degree, a project engineer is typically, if in the office, is typically the place that will start them, because it gets a well-rounded experience at various levels on projects. Got a lot of tasks that you're given, a lot of responsibility early on, but you can quickly find out how quickly things from day to day move, and some of the things you need to get done sooner rather than later. Yeah, awesome. So I will say that also in the chat, someone suggested contacting the local apprenticeship offices and asking, and we do have, if you go out on the students going out or educators on the career pathways pages, you can see the different apprenticeship programs we have in the community. I always say, like, there are different ways to go through this. There's the apprenticeship, and then there's the going straight to Ivy Tech. It's kind of like public versus private college to get your business degree. So I think definitely exploring all the great opportunities. We in our region have so many great ways to learn that and gain skills. So always exploring what option is the best fit for you, I think, is the recommendation that I would give. I mean, you think about how you picked Bethel College, I went to Ball State, like, people go all over the place, and hoping to find the right fit and do what's comfortable for you right then. So Absolutely.
That's a great tip out there. So thanks for that one. So let's see. So you already kind of said a typical day is not typical for you.
Right.
So maybe talk real quick. What time is it? We have about 5 minutes. Let's talk about, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you were in school?
I'll go twofold on this, because I'm going to speak to myself specifically, and then sort of the listeners today also, that generational piece. I think for me, growing up and what I'm seeing now, the piece that we didn't have that you're seeing so much is the technology piece, right? I've seen so many examples of the gentlemen that have been in the field, or the ladies that have been in the field 10, 20 years, doing a geometry project on a piece of paper, on a wood stud, to figure out what they need to do in the field, where the younger generation will just pull out their iPhone, do the same math, and come up with the answer. Where again, 20, 30 years ago, that wasn't an option. So those carpenters had to figure out the geometry, to figure out the roof pitch, to where again, now you can just do it on your phone and have it in 10 seconds. So I think the technology piece, generational, has been huge, because it's something that has helped the industry. And then there's also the question for us of what there is, and what are we missing that we don't have. I think for the younger generation now, the students specifically, I think the big thing that we continue to preach to the younger generation, develop that work ethic. And it sounds so simple, but our director of field operations says, we go out and speak to high schools, to building trades programs, to Ivy Tech programs, you name it. The thing that we're looking for, come to work every day, show up every day. It seems like a minor task, but little things like that just help start your career. And at the bottom line, that's really any career. So you can take construction out of it. Your boss at the bank's going to probably expect you to, show up every day too. Or, your boss at the manufacturing company really wants you to show up 5 days in a row too. So it's not anything different. It's more the mindset of just coming into work, doing what your job description is tasking you to do, and doing it to the best of your ability.
And I think too, when you're part of a team effort, like, yeah, they want you to show up at the bank, and there are different jobs that are important, but a team like in manufacturing and construction, yes, somebody's really counting on you to be there.
Absolutely.
And if you don't do your job, they can't do their job. So it
yes,
makes it,
yes,
people are counting on you.
Absolutely. It's a trickle down effect. And when we set out job minutes and job schedules, if a subcontractor, you name the reason why they're not on the job, it can definitely change the schedule, and how that impacts not only them as a company, but us as a contractor or any other subs. So yeah, it's holding yourself accountable, then holding your team accountable beside you. Yeah.
So are there any specific majors? I'm not sure. We kind of touched on this a little bit. Mm-hmm. So if somebody is interested in going to a four-year college, but also looking to get into the construction trades, kind of that work, are there any specific majors you'd recommend?
There's construction management majors. Purdue and Ball State both have them. Western Michigan has them. Some of the schools up in Michigan have them. Great programs. And we'll go around to the career trades, and you'll see 10 to 15 contractors there. So, I mean, the options are limitless really there. This construction technology, I don't think it's called construction technology yet, but the technology component is the other one, where we've got 5 on staff now, where I would guess probably 10, 12 years ago, we maybe had 1 because of the uses that we can use them for, and the expertise that they bring to a project. Those are the 2 big ones, because the construction management one, you can go in 3 or 4 different areas and still grow your career. And obviously the technology is sort of the same thing. Right.
That's great. And the kind of those emerging majors are the ones to be really interested in, I think, for students.
Yes. Well, and students, because they're so familiar with technology at an early age these days and what they can get involved in. Yeah, you don't think of somebody necessarily with a technology degree that's in a construction level project and career, but they're definitely out there. They're leading the way on a lot of different areas for sure.
Awesome. And so we're going to close with, what is the best thing about your job?
Best thing about my job, I get to directly work with clients, and I get to hear the impacts that, again, we're making through their projects. And there's stories after stories that we have heard over the years that I've heard of what it's done. And, whether this is from the owner, whether it's from a mid-level employee, whether it's from an entry-level employee. The impacts of a construction project, again, that we don't often see or feel because we're doing the bricks and mortars, but the true impact of that project and what it's done to them personally, professionally, it's pretty cool because you don't hear it all the time. And when you sit down with the owner and they go over it and they share from their heart, I've seen some tears in our bigger, larger team meetings because of some of those comments for sure.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's rewarding work.
It is.
So
It is.
Thank you so much. Thanks to Mike for sharing all this great information and great thoughts, and to all the students and educators who have attended on this cold and blustery day. I encourage everybody to visit the Building Trades Day landing page. These panels are being recorded, so you'll have opportunities to learn from many other employers, educators, and community partners about whatever construction trades career pathways you might find interesting. So visit, stay warm, and thanks again to Mike and everybody who attended. Have a great day.
Thank you.